Hey guys, welcome back. Another week, another division covered. We're sticking with the West, but jumping to the AFC this time, where we have Corstian's beloved Kansas City Chiefs to talk about.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But yeah, no, we'll talk about almost the three-peat that didn't happen, and then we'll talk about the Denver Broncos, what Corstian's excited about it going into Knicks' year 2 and all the changes that they've had. But first off, Corstian, how was your weekend? I saw you got a haircut. Looks nice.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week too, but yeah.
Did it not grow that much? It doesn't look like it grew that much at all.
This is about as much as it's grown since a week ago. Like,
I could have sworn you got another haircut. That's what it looks like from the view.
Yeah, maybe just, I don't know how. I don't know. But no.
I'm not going to mention anything that starts with the H word. We're not going to do that here. It's a forbidden word. But
yeah, I don't
know. I can't say much because mine is pretty bad when I get buzz cuts too. So, but yours looks much better than mine.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that. I am not complimenting your haircut very well to start off this. But
yeah,
how was your weekend? Did you do anything fun?
It's all right. What did I do? I played some Age of Empires, that old computer game. I don't know. That's kind of what I do for fun.
Is that the phone game where you have to I keep on getting those advertisements where you have to level up your guys, where you have to add guys and then.
No, it's an old PC game. It first released in 1999. It's owned by Microsoft, but the past 5 to 8 years, it got popular again, and then they started updating it, adding more, units and all that kind of stuff. It's a real-time strategy game, but yeah, I don't know. I do that. I play some of the competitive ladder, but I'm not really that good at it, so it's whatever,
I remember we always used to play Clash of Clans the entire time.
Yeah,
and I think my last town hall was level 10.
Yeah,
but to me that's the old head game.
Yeah, I don't even know what the highest town hall is. I mean, I played it and I kind of stopped a little bit ago, but yeah, it's kind of whatever.
Yeah. See the Aaron Rodgers news? Do you care? What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of what everybody was expecting to have happened 3 months ago, pretty much any day now kind of news. But, it finally happens. And I think it does elevate the team beyond what they had at the current quarterback situation. I think this won't it boosts some of their odds to make the playoffs, but I don't know how much it boosts a Super Bowl contention odd. When you get to the Steelers, I think we'll have a better idea of where they might be. And I know you talked about this a little bit before too, that we'll talk more about them once we actually cover the NFC or AFC North. But yeah, I mean, I think it's good for the for just the pass catchers in general. It helps out the entire offense just knowing that you have someone halfway competent that can throw the football versus Mason Rudolph, no offense, and oh my gosh, Will Howard. Yeah.
I mean, I think the bigger concern is you let go of 2 starting quarterbacks you had on your roster, and you weren't getting a necessary guarantee for 2 months that Aaron Rodgers would be on the team, and that caused anxiety in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, good for the Steelers to get a quarterback upgrade. I think he'll be better than he was last year. And last year was kind of a quietly good season for him. It's just so much of turmoil beyond the Jets that kind of masked everything. But you're going from Breece Hall down to Jaylen Warren. And I love Caleb Johnson. I think is a great fit on the Steelers. But you're asking a lot of him to be a significant contributor year one. Freiermuth, I've always loved him. And I think he could be unlocked a little bit. But DK Metcalf is – if they don't have some help outside of him because they traded Pickens away, that's going to be really troublesome. So a lot of it's on Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, those supporting guys. I don't know if Mike Williams is still on the team or not. But Yeah, we'll do a deep dive. I think it's better, but I don't know how much better when you have Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Shedeur Sanders and the other teams. Totally kidding. I don't know where Shedeur Sanders is going to be year one. He could still end up being a crazy player, but like at least competing with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, that's going to be
yeah.
Great TV. Like the NFL knew something because did they have the Steelers and the Jets week 1? Where like because Justin Fields went to the Jets, he's a starter. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers went from the Jets to the Steelers. Now he's the presumed starter.
Yeah.
I think it was known all along. Like you have all these primetime games and stuff like that. That's that will be Steelers will be much watched TV just for the crazy circus, but like he's going to a better coaching situation because you're not going to have Mike Tomlin like operate. So it's a mixed bag for me, but some excitement for Steelers fans out there. So we'll start with your much hated rival, the Kansas City Chiefs. Aiming for a 3-peat last year, fell very kind of short. They made it all the way there, which was impressive, but just offensive and defensive lines got absolutely dominated. It was almost like a replication of like the Tampa Super Bowl. But you trade away Joe Thuney to the Bears, and you have some reshuffling on the O-line, like where Juwan James, I don't think he's on the team anymore. And you get Jalen Moore and Josh Simmons for the draft. So they did a really good job like hitting on their pieces in the draft. Believe it or not, I don't think it's the end for them, but I don't think they're like suddenly a tier above the rest of the AFC now, like people thought, especially because you have these changes on the offensive line where you get a little bit less experience, like trusting Mike Caliendo, Jalen Moore, and Juwan Taylor to hold up. That is a big ask, but at the same time, Bashard Smith was a sneaky ad. But just looking overall at their schedule, I have them targeted for 12 to 13 wins. I really don't think I see them going 10 wins or below, given how much of a stronghold they've had on the division for a while. And their schedule is not too bad. Like when I look at Philadelphia, Baltimore, and the Bills, they could totally lose those games in the regular season. But Detroit's weaker. Houston, maybe they lose that one too, but I don't see many games in their schedule where they're like that overly matched. So that's why I have them at 12 to 13 wins here.
Yeah. I could probably assume similar things to them. I mean, they have like a couple tough games throughout the season. I mean, but it's really just a couple being like, I mean, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Detroit, Washington are probably like the biggest heavy hitters outside the division. I think the biggest competition does come within the division for the Chiefs here this season. Where like the Chargers, I don't know if I could say they got significantly better over the course of the offseason, but last season they were a competitive team. And I think guys going into year 2 will make big impacts to, stay competitive. And then you look at the Broncos kind of just like bolstering what was already good from last season. And then I think the Raiders had a phenomenal offseason. And so I think it'll really come down to like how good will they be against their division opponents and having to play those guys, especially because like, sure, you could say maybe on paper Chiefs are the best team, but it always with like divisional games, it's not always how you like expect it to be. Like back in the early Legion of Boom era with the Seahawks, it always felt like they should demolish the Rams, but somehow the Rams would always at least win one of the games each season at like their forever average 8-8 record, that they kept on going for.
Never forget the fake punt return they had where the Bears had actually pulled off a play like that, like last season, where they had one guy fake the fair catch and then the other guy score. I remember one of those games is like, wow, they're pulling off all the stops.
Yeah, and so like obviously division games are a little bit different. So I think the division games are really what's going to decide like the division rankings, I guess, versus the typical just how the rest of their schedule pans out, just because it is seeming to be really, really competitive this year.
Okay. We were talking about 10 key games then. So it sounds like you have a completely different outlook. Thanks for the change there. Are you worried about Travis Kelce?
Yes and no. I mean, like, yes, in the sense that he won't be the superstar we saw 2+ years ago. But I mean, like, Travis Kelce getting 800 yards is still in like the upper half of tight end stats that you'd like to see from a player. And so it's like he probably, like, I don't envision him being as dominant continuing forward, but I think he'll still find himself being productive, especially like if we have Rashee Rice staying healthy the whole season. Like, I mean, look at how the season started last year. He kind of was the middle of the field Travis Kelce explosion role, and that's why I think we didn't see a lot of Travis Kelce early in the season, and then Rice went down, and then we kind of saw Kelce have to pick up some of the slack just from like the rest of the receiving room. But with Rice healthy, I think him and Kelce will be solid over the middle. And then you have, Xavier Worthy is kind of your big boomer bust kind of play guy. And then Hollywood Brown, similar to Worthy with that, but I think he's a little bit more refined of a route runner. So you'll kind of see him more further down, like deeper routes. But then you have Rice and Kelce to be your short to intermediate pass range guys.
That's what I see on paper. It makes sense. I agree with you. Travis Kelce, 800 yards. Don't panic if he has that this season. The rest of the tight ends have caught up at this point, where it's like you have Brock Bowers, like he's like your new Travis Kelce. You have Trey McBride, always putting in top 3 seasons. He's just absolute baller. Sam Laporta looking to rebound. Like you got a lot of tight ends. That and Mark Andrews is probably, if there's no more motivated player than Mark Andrews in the tight end spot after what happened in that playoff game. So it's he's going to look to have a great season too. Like there's a lot of great options here, like fantasy wise. But I wanted to go back to what you said about Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, because on paper they have really niche roles that they're really good at on the Chiefs offense. But the problem with them has been just the health and like the evolving like legal situations like that Rashee Rice at least has had to face. And speaking of which, I just had to mention this. Just found out about the Isaiah Bond stuff that happened last month.
Oh yeah,
insane. What is like? He just went from like first round draft status, like as good as Matthew Golden, to now he's suffering like this because of the legal situation. So like, again, any promises on this channel that people are going to be like absolute sleepers, or like this is all assuming like on the field stuff. Just had to put that out there. So it sucks for like predicting prospects of it, but like for the reality of the situation, if the allegations are true, like there's no discussion to be had like on this topic. So in regard to like the health of Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown, it's unreliable for me. So like it's why they invest the pick in Jalen Royals. They still have Justin Ross on the roster, still holding out hope for him, but it is very slim optimistic that he's going to have a significant role this season. But
yeah,
I think Xavier Worthy, you could see like growth from him, really big growth, where he's not like having splash plays. Year one, he's having more consistent production. So he's the guy I would look to now that he's had a year in the league. He's somebody that could really see step up.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I mean, you look at the team still, though, and it's like they got – I think depth is, like, one of the strong suits of this team in terms of, like, their offensive weapons. Because, like, sure, like, the questions with Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown plus, like, can Worthy develop is kind of, like, all, like, the talk or whatever. And I guess Travis Kelce's slight regression. But then, like, you look at – I feel like Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 years ago when he was on the Chiefs, he put up, like, 900 receiving yards. So it's, like – and when he went to the Patriots, he sucked, but like he came back. So, like I don't doubt his ability to like at least function within the offense. Obviously, you mentioned Jalen Royals, Sky Moore's kind of whatever, and then Nicky Remigio. I think had a couple.
Thornton. Wow. They had Tyquan Thornton on the roster. They went from Mecole Hardman. I actually like that move a lot for them.
Yeah, and so it's like, I mean, obviously a lot of the depth guys are just kind of like whatever players, but they're like guys that I feel like are decent enough role players that can like get schemed within this offense to find success. And so even with injuries, you have that. Plus, I'm a huge fan of their tight end room. We talked about Noah Gray a little bit last season and how like he's pretty impressive. You know, when like Travis Kelce wasn't on the field, like Noah Gray was making solid plays. I was a fan of the Jared Wiley pick last season. And then they bring in Robert Tonyan, who obviously he's older, not as good, but like as a fourth string, probably not even going to make the roster kind of guy. I mean, just having a fourth string guy like Robert Tonyan, I feel like says a lot about the quality of depth that you have just on this offense, which I think I'm a fan of. And then you even look at the running back room, you have Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and then Elijah Mitchell is kind of your three. And so all three of those guys, I think, fit specific roles within like a running back by committee, if that's the approach they want to go to. And so they have just really solid depth from top to bottom.
Don't forget about Brashard Smith. Mm-hmm. Brashard Smith, he's going to be a really good contributor for him. I can't bet year one because, again, they have really good depth at that position. They don't need him to take over the backfield. But 2-3 years from now, that's a guy I would keep my eye on. He was picked in the 7th round, but he has a lot of talent behind him. This is a great fit for him.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I think I think the floor really is still 10 wins. Like they're a good team. And I think as long as you have Patrick Mahomes healthy, you know,
and their defense is like largely returned the same. It's everybody but Justin Reed. That's probably the big question on my end on the other side of the ball. With Justin Reed gone, you put in a secondary player like Jaden Hicks. Justin Reed did a lot for the team. So it's like now that he's gone, it's like, is that become a major weakness for them? But you're right, 100% right. I don't see them losing more than 10 wins this season.
Yeah, and then additionally you bring in Christian Fulton from the Chargers, and that's an addition I'm a pretty big fan of. He's a proven cornerback, and so on top of just like what they were so good on defense and losing Justin Reed, like I am pretty confident in what they got. Also on the Excel sheet, there's a copy of sheet 1, which shows what their team was last season, in case you wanted to see what the starting lineup looked like last season versus this year. Just heads up, but
yeah, I appreciate that. Like I'm just looking on what they had in the offensive line. Like they lost a lot of talent on my end, on guys that I liked. So you're hoping Jalen Moore and Josh Simmons kind of buffer that end, but it's not looking great. But let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. Very exciting team this year, like as far as like all the additions and the culture changes. But just to be blunt, I have them like around 6 or 7 wins this year. I'm not expecting them to be in the wild card situation week 16. I think there's just a lot of changes, a lot of time. But I am excited about the combination of Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby teaming up. And then you got Malcolm Kuntz as well. I'm excited about Chip Kelly getting a second stint. I'm excited about Ashton Genty. Joining Pete Carroll is going to use the heck out of him. And then year 2, Brock Bowers. I'm all for it. Geno Smith. I'm not sure. I think just looking at the quarterback situation across, like I'm not sure Geno Smith really challenges the other quarterbacks in the division as much as I would like. But he is an upgrade, so we'll see how much their ceiling gets raised by that.
Yeah. I'm quite a big fan of them bringing in Geno. I mean, obviously I hate them bringing in Geno Smith because I think Geno Smith is good. I think he's miles better than what they had last season with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And just like him alone, I feel like it'll be like I don't think they make the playoffs necessarily, but I think they're like right outside the playoff bubble, like being like a potential like 9 seed, I guess. You know, if we're looking at just like the rankings of all the AFC teams, they'd be like 1 or 2 teams out of actually making the playoffs, just because I think Geno Smith had a huge part in elevating like the weaknesses that the Seahawks offense had the past couple seasons, just with his like kind of sneaky mobility. being able to like maneuver the pocket. Obviously, you have Brock Bowers coming to season 2. Their O-line has, they drafted well last season and they got decent depth. That could be starters coming into this or eventually this season. But, out like last season, I was a huge fan of Jackson Powers-Johnson. I had him going in the first round. He ended up going in the second, I think. But like that's the caliber of player I thought, their center is right now. Obviously, Brock Bowers, beast. And then just free agency, I think they brought in a lot of great talent, where you have Eric Stokes at cornerback, who I'm a huge fan of. They bring in Jeremy Chin as his starting safety now here. Devin White, obviously, we know his issues with just not being able to like play consistently well as he did his rookie season. But then you have him, who I think is an upgrade. Plus, you have Landon Roberts, who I'm confident can be a good starter at middle linebacker for them. And so it's like they have all these pieces. They drafted a ton of players to fill in like potential gaps or just work as depth or be eventual starters. So that's why I think, we see them a lot more competitive this season. They treated the offseason as if they're going for a playoff push. And that's why I have them closer to like 8 to 9 wins this season, which is still just like 2 wins more higher than what you predicted here. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the Raiders.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's going to be, I think it'll take time for them to get where they want to be. But they'll make progress, steadily, the team building. It's just the other teams in the division and where they're currently at in their development trajectory. I can't see the Raiders higher than 4th. That's kind of where I see them at.
Yeah.
There are 2 things I want to see because I think they could be some pain points. One is Patrick Graham. He's a really great defensive coordinator. He's used to changing fronts. Like he's adapted 3-4, 4-3, 5-2 different fronts. But now you're bringing in a head coach with Pete Carroll, who's had a lot of success with the cover 3 system and the Legion of Boom style. So it's like, can Patrick Graham's style mesh with Pete Carroll's, who has the ultimate say on the coverages? Will Patrick Graham be in a position where he can be his normal strength as a defensive coordinator? Because he's a really good one. But it's just that power, the power of control. Other thing to worry about is last time Chip Kelly was in the NFL, he's ran his guys like to the ground, like Tibbs style, to use basketball terms, with the no-huddle offense consistently. And one major weakness is the Philly offense is dangerous when they're no-huddling and for 11 straight plays to tire out your defense. But if you stop them in the first set of downs, it doesn't matter because they chew up so little time. So that's the thing I would worry about especially with what Denver's doing to revamp their rushing attack, what the Chargers did, what Kansas City is adapted to. Like those are things where I could see as methodologies for them losing. But at the same time, Chip Kelly's done a phenomenal job at Ohio State last year. Done a really good job at UCLA the seasons before that. So it's like, can he implement a successful attack without like taking energy away from Brock Bowers, Genty, like Jacoby Myers, like those guys? I'll be very interested to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just the addition of Geno Smith, I mean, like, I don't know if that'll work necessarily, but I think just the fact that you have a guy like Geno Smith makes me more comfortable in, like, him being able to handle, like, a different type of offense, potentially, this kind of no-huddle scheme that Chip Kelly personally likes. And I think beyond him, like, I think they do have players that can be really scary in a no-huddle offense. I mean, namely, obviously, Brock Bowers, like, being able to, like, have a no-huddle function with Brock Bowers, just kind of, like, just feasting on defenses. And then Ashton Genty as well, like, having Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, which I think are the best offensive players in both last year and this year's class, is an insane thing to have. I'm a huge fan of Jacoby Myers. He had like a quiet 1,000-yard season last year. Feel like Myers is getting more-ish recognition, I think, over the past 2 seasons with the Raiders. Last season he had 800 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. This season he had 1,000 receiving yards with 4 touchdowns. I'm like, he's kind of quietly just balling out with whatever the Raiders had at quarterback, right? Because it was last season Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and then the year before it was Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo.
My one worry is that was with the Devontae Adams majority of the season, right? Do you feel like he could be a wide receiver one? Oh no, because he got traded to the Jets. That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think. Well, because yeah, if anything, it was 2023 was the year he had. Right, or when was Devontae? Because
he was released or traded to the Jets midseason last year.
Yeah, and I felt like he kept on. I mean, he continued to play. I have him in Dynasty, and so he was kind of just a weekly must start for me, regardless of the situation. And I think people that have had him on fantasy kind of understand that pretty much week in, week out, he was, getting a lot of catches. He had 87 receptions on the season last year on 129 targets. He played 15 games, so he missed 2 games as well with injury, and he put up those numbers. And so it's like I feel pretty confident in his ability. Plus, I do think Trey Tucker's all right, and then you bring in Jack Beck, who I think is a guy that could be good. He's a second-round pick out of TCU, and so you bring in additional guys there, and I think one thing that also helps Jacoby Myers is the fact that he plays good football, but it's hard to specifically key in on him when you got Brock Bowers as kind of like the primary receiving threat that you got to focus on. Yeah. Plus now teams are going to have to key in on Ashton Genty, and so it's like
So you're kind of saying he doesn't have to be the primary option here.
He has the ability to play as kind of like a wide receiver one without the defenses being able to focus 100% on him just because of the other offensive weapons that happen to be there. So it's more like a 3-headed monster where he just happens to be the 3 only because it's Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty were, Yeah,
that's fair. I was about to say, because there's still a guy like Keenan Allen sitting on the streets. If he's willing to go to Las Vegas, that's a situation that can make Jacoby Myers even more beneficial because Keenan Allen will open up space. They play different roles. As far as I think Jacoby plays a flanker spot, I believe, or the X. He could play either. Whereas Keenan Allen can thrive in the slot. You got Brock being either big slot or tight end. So yeah, lots of moving parts here. I'm excited to see what the Raiders do this season. Quarterback upgrade again, similar to the Steelers. It's going to look up from here for their offense. With the Broncos, I know you're really excited about talking about them. They had one fantastic deep bomb touchdown to start off the playoffs against the Bills. It went downhill from there, but fantastic season last year for Bo Nix. Played all 17 regular season games. Brought him to the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. 29 touchdowns, second most as a rookie quarterback. Very experienced guy at his age. I think it's they invested in Pat Bryant, but the one guy I'm just going to say to watch out for him and dive for the rest of it is Marvin Mims. Because the way he ended off his last 2 games, I'm going to read out the stat lines for each game for you. Against Cincy, he had they lost 30-24 in OT. He had 8 receptions on 8 targets, 103 yards, averaging 12.9 per catch, and 2 touchdowns. Against Kansas City, he had 5 receptions, 5 targets, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he had a blow-up game against Cleveland, but it was a 93-yard reception. But I think those 2 last games are signifying of how he ended the season, and he's a guy to really key on, especially when you got guys like Cortland Sutton and then the weapons there. So I'm really excited for him in particular because he looks like he's a guy that can be somebody to keep your eyes on. Especially with Valet. But with the Broncos, I don't see them as high as Kansas City, but I do have them at 9-11 wins. So very similar to how they finished the season last year. Their season looks a little bit harder because Cincinnati will be better. Philadelphia is strong. Then you got Houston, Kansas City in their division, Washington. But where they rank among some of the top teams is a little bit more even than a Kansas City. So I could see them like split with the Chargers and then split with Kansas City, if not lose both games. And I think that puts them a tick under Kansas City here.
Yeah, I think with the Broncos kind of like alongside the Chiefs and the Chargers, I feel like competitively they can be in pretty much most any game in the season. I think maybe there's like teams like the Bills, Lions, Ravens are like three teams that I think would still scare me as a Broncos fan. I think pretty much any team in the division should be scared of those kind of three teams in terms of caliber to dominate you during the season. But Broncos, I think they did a good job just like getting upgraded talent, basically 4 weak points within their both offense and their defense. In terms of losses that they had over the course of the offseason, they didn't really lose all too much. Like Cody Barton was probably the biggest loss. Technically, he was a solid linebacker, but you bring in Dre Greenlaw here. Well, Jordan Humphrey was whatever, I mean, he's a good blocking receiver, but I feel like if
they lost Zach Wilson, dude.
Yeah, man. Zach the Cougar Slayer Wilson.
That's it? That's all you got to say?
Yeah.
Fair. I saw they just added J.K. Dobbins, though. I was just about to ask you, because prior to that, do you feel like R.J. Harvey and Audric Estime could be the answer to the run game? Because Javonte Williams just signed with the Cowboys, right? But now you bring in J.K. Dobbins. Do you think the combination of Dobbins, Harvey, and Estime will lead to a running back improvement?
I think so. Javonte Williams, like, I hope he can have like a career revitalization with the Cowboys. Like, I don't dislike him as a player. That rookie season of his was a lot of fun. There's like, I think when you look at like clips of like, oh, here's some beast mode plays or whatever, that one play against like the Ravens where he carries like 5 different guys and has like a 40-yard carry or something. Like, that was fun to watch, but then his knee pretty much exploded. And it just seems like he hasn't been quite the same player since. And like, the Broncos rush attack was pretty abysmal last season. Where like collectively, I think all the running backs together may not have even broken 1,000 rush yards. Like, off the top of my head, because I mean, like, Jaleel McLaughlin, who I think might be on the outs of the Broncos, just like looking at the team now, it's like him as running back 4. It's kind of hard to imagine to keep him plus a fullback. He might be a practice squad kind of guy, but like last season, McLaughlin, he had 496 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. He was all right as a receiver. He had 76 receiving yards for 2 touchdowns, but it's like that's kind of your leading guy. Estime, he was whatever last season. He really didn't get that many touches, which I think shows some of the confidence that Sean Payton has. He had 300 rushers. So I guess they broke a little bit over 1,000 yards last season with whatever Williams had. But I think, J.K. Dobbins, just sure there's the injury concerns. He played most of the year last season, which I think is a huge plus for him. But I think having him plus R.J. Harvey just completely changes up the running attack. And then Audric Estime, like if he improves as kind of a ground and pound between the tackles type of runner, great. If not, I mean, I guess he's just part of the next kind of wave of running backs that'll leave the following season or something. But
What about the Joker?
I hate that so much.
Why?
Everybody says the Joker.
What is Mr. Ingram's nickname then for you? What do you call them then?
Call him finally a tight end that can get over like 200 receiving yards on a season.
The running back and the tight end are clear pain points for you, man. Talk to me about what you envision.
You want to know how many receiving yards their starting tight end had last season? Adam Troutman.
I love Adam Troutman.
You want to know how many receiving yards he had last season? You want to guess?
Probably less than Evan Ingram will this season.
Adam Troutman, the Broncos starting tight end last season, had 188 receiving yards last year.
That's my tight end one, baby.
I think I could have lined up at tight end and had at least half of that over the course of the season. Not saying I could even match it, but I'm like, honestly, throw me a ball a game for like 7 yards. I'd probably catch that and I get tackled immediately. That gets me to about 100-ish yards, maybe.
Yeah, if you're playing 16 games, yeah.
Yeah, and so Adam Troutman on 22 catches as well. Like, what is he doing? He's a fine enough blocker. I'll give him that, I guess. But like, that's what I'm going to call Evan Ingram, a tight end that can get over 200 receiving yards on a season.
To be fair, Cortland Sutton does get a lot of touches in that offense. But
yeah,
I mean, like, why not? You could have got the fourth string tight end from, or you could have had Noah Gray start for you.
Noah Gray, I think I could have looked at every single tight end in the division, and they'd probably be better than Adam Troutman. Look, I'd rather have Travis Kelce. I'd rather have Noah Gray. I'd rather have Jared Wiley. I'd rather have Robert Tonyan.
Jared Wiley is wild.
Jared Wiley has upside, in theory. No way Wiley performs worse than Adam Troutman. Like, Wiley has to, like, suck so bad.
Dude, that's like saying every rookie has upside.
Yeah, and I'll give him that. He was a guy, I think we both were kind of like, oh, this is a solid depth pick for the Chiefs. And then we go to the Raiders.
I'm really surprised why Adam Troutman has not had more production. I will say that because he got outplayed by Juwan Johnson in New Orleans. And when he got his opportunities, he had a lot of advantages knowing the scheme. He didn't pan out. As for me, a guy who touted him, it's like a sleeper tight end, I am genuinely surprised he's not been panning out like this. But Evan Ingram, you get it. You get a veteran. You get a guy that's reliable. I think this is great for Denver's offense. It's going to make things a little bit easier on Knicks and give them the easier answers. So I like this move a lot for them. I think Evan Ingram could be a lot more productive. I'm going to target him for like 4 times as much as what Adam Troutman had last year.
Yeah, I'll be happy if Evan Ingram has like 600 receiving yards and like 5 touchdowns. If that happens, that'll be a significant boost to this offense. All things staying the same, you know?
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I know you got Cortland Sutton. I know you got Evan Ingram. And I know you revamped the running game. But Marvin Mims, I'm telling you, by season's end, he's going to be a guy that you absolutely have to game plan for.
Yeah, and then I'm a fan of the Broncos' depth at the receiving position as well. I mean, like, because I feel like most people confidently feel like Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims are kind of your like receivers 1 and 2 going into the season, especially with just how hot Marvin Mims was the back half of last season. But then like Devon Vele as a 7th round pick, he had a pretty good season. You know, he earned starting reps. You know, in 13 games, he had 41 catches for 475 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm like, that's solid for a 7th round pick. Then you have Troy Franklin, who I think, like, he had a lot of potential boom plays that just didn't connect, or like the ball fell through his hand, or maybe it was like slightly over or underthrown. But, you know, you connect on those. You get that better chemistry. That's good. Pat Bryant, I think, is going to be hopefully it feels like an underrated move where he doesn't have like the straight line speed, but he's really like, if you look at his clips, he's very agile. So he's like a really solid kind of short yardage slant. He almost like a slant boy. But like, that's kind of where his strength is, where he's quick off the jump. And so like you kind of have a potentially good player there. And then Trent Sherfield Sr. From the Vikings, who solid special teams guy. I think he's better than who was the Broncos wide receiver 6 last season. Little Jordan Humphreys, which I'll take, but like you also look last season, the Broncos lost. They got rid of Josh Reynolds and Tim Patrick. So it was really like Brandon Johnson, Devon Vele, and Jalen Virgil as kind of like your 3, 4, or 4, 5, 6. And so like I think going into this season, I'm a lot more confident in the Broncos 4, 5, 6 with Franklin, Bryant, and Sherfield.
Oh, absolutely. And then don't forget about A.T. Perry. He's had some flashes too. So I think the big thing is like you look at some of the defensive additions They were really, really good under Vance Joseph. And then, again, crazy transformation by Joseph after what happened in Miami. And I'm just impressed. Then you add a guy like Dre Greenlaw, again, a year out from tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl. Probably the most unfortunate things that could happen to a team. It might have been the reason why San Francisco lost that Super Bowl. Then you got Hufanga from San Francisco, really physical safety. You love to see it. And then you got a guy I really love out of Texas, Jahdae Barrett. Really, really good guy, on top of already having Moss and Surtain. This defense it could be the best. It was already one of the league's best last season. It could be easily the best in the division. And that's talking with Kansas City, bringing everybody intact. The guys they added, the guys they already have in the front seven, you already had Zach Allen, Blake Cooper, and then Singleton and Benito standing out. And then you add these guys on top of it, watch out.
Yeah. I'd say a concern for the Broncos is just staying healthy this coming season. Last season, they did a really good job at staying healthy. Their O-line, I think, pretty much played the entire season, which is really nice. But you look obviously Dre Greenlaw with the injury recovery, Talanoa Hufanga with his injury stuff. Riley Moss missed some time last season. And so it's those are three key guys that you're hoping stay healthy. I know Mike McGlinchey, he's normally healthy. He had a couple missed games, but then you look at J.K. Dobbins, he has had the injury bug throughout his career. And then Evan Ingram, last season, I think he missed a couple games too. So it's these guys all healthy. I think you could make a case for them taking the division. Obviously, it's still a tough ask. Just again, looking at the division, I think the Raiders could be fourth place with 8 wins in the division potentially.
I don't know about
tough.
that. That's a stretch. It could happen, but
it is a stretch, I think. But with the additions, specifically on defense that the Raiders got, plus just having the rookies on offense and the second-year players on offense, I think they'll be even if they lose, even if they're closer to your 6-ish win prediction, I think it'll be a grind for other teams to beat them, even if they are a losing team, just because that's how confident I am in just the players that they brought in, players they've been developing, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so Broncos, if they stay healthy, the right guys continue progressing. We don't have if Bo Nix has a sophomore slump, well then obviously it's kind of harder to say they'll be in competition to take the division. But if going into year 2, Bo Nix, just plays better than he did last season, then it's kind of it feels easier to say that the Broncos potentially could take the division or be really close to being number 1 in the division. And then same with, you have Franklin getting better. If Devon Bailey plays better, Evan Ingram stays healthy, J.K. Dobbins is healthy and plays as good as he did last. It's a lot of
that's a lot guys.
It's a lot of ifs, but it's building off of an already successful season, which I think is the best thing going in for the Broncos.
Yeah, I kind of see your perspective here. I also think the Chargers, that will be very difficult, especially. Let's go to the Chargers. They have the deepest roster I've seen in a while. You have start with investing in Najee Harris and Amari Hampton, get in the running back room. Lab McConkey, great season. You have a lot of options for starting spots. I think the big question for me, we talked about Knicks. I think if Herbert can stay healthy, the sky's the limit for this team. And I know I said this before, and I feel like I get burned every time. I'm going to say the Chargers go for 11 to 12 wins this season. I don't think it's a stretch to say that. I think they'll be prepared. Look at guys like Mike Williams came back. Quentin Johnson doesn't have to focus on being the guy anymore. You invested in Trey Harris. You already have Lab McConkey. Sneaky add with Trey Lance on the team. That could be something.
Yeah.
Tyler Conklin, the backup, Will Dissly. Mekhi Becton from the Eagles. Rashawn Slater coming back. My key is the offensive line because you just invested in Zion Johnson, Slater. You got Bozeman coming back, then Mekhi Becton, Joe Alt. Those are great. Then you're looking at then you're looking at their defense, which is really, really good under Jesse Minter. You still have Khalil Mack. Tupelotu still on the team. You do lose Joey Bosa, but I think with like the depth you have on the defensive line, I feel great about it. And the back end is still really good and improving. So a lot to like about what the Chargers have going for them on offense. It remains to be seen if they lose some of that dynamicism that they had losing J.K. Dobbins. But I see them at 11 to 12 wins. I can't see why not.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's not unreasonable to think that as well. Like, I think, I said it multiple times. I feel like this division is going to be really competitive this year. I mean, they were already kind of competitive last season, but I feel like everybody, like no one, I mean, obviously they lost a lot of players in free agency, but I don't feel like anybody got worse over the course of the offseason. If anything, everybody either stayed the same, got better, or you're expecting them to get better due to, second-year players or third-year players, stepping up and getting better at whatever that they do, Yeah. And so, like, obviously, like, Ladd McConkey, phenomenal year last season. Like, if he builds upon that, you have one of the best receivers in the league as your wide receiver one, on your team. But you also look at the receiver room going from last season to this season, and I think it is quite miles ahead of what they had last season. Like last season, their expected wide receiver one going in was Joshua Palmer, with Quentin Johnston at your 2, Ladd McConkey as your wide receiver 3, who obviously he's good. Then you have DJ Chark at wide receiver 4, Darius Davis at 5, and then Brendan Rice at 6. Like,
oh my gosh.
I'm like, there was potential, but like that is not a room I had and think about like pre-draft when it was just
we had a lot of hopes for Quentin Johnson.
It was Palmer, Johnston, and DJ Chark were your 1, 2, and 3 before the draft last year.
Yeah.
And so now going from that to Ladd McConkey, Mike Williams, and then Trey Harris is your 1, 2, 3, having Quentin Johnston at your 4, followed up with Darius Davis, and then another rookie in Keandre Lambert.
Hey, the slander for Darius Davis is crazy, bro.
For what? Sorry.
You said Darius Davis? The slander? No, I'm joking. I
was like, what? No, I'm saying it's better than last season. What are you talking about?
Yeah. I'm just messing. I thought you had a sarcastic cough there, but it's hay fever season, so totally get it. There's pollen going around.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I see your point though. Like having Quentin Johnson at the 4, like with all of his struggles, is great for his development. And I'm not ruling out he can be a wide receiver 1 or 2, but we've seen the story before. When you thrust him in the starting spot and put the game on the line in his hands, he might win 3 out of 10 times, but it's very unreliable. So the talent around Ladd McConkey was the biggest thing I noticed at the end of last season. They've improved upon that. I think they'll look better for it. And they got deep in the tight end spots, which is underrated. They have more protection in the O-line. Andre James is a quiet pickup. You got Trey Pipkins. Like, they're just deeper all around. And, I think the big question here is Herbert's got to stay healthy. And hopefully the investments in the offensive line help that.
Yeah. So like Herbert staying healthy, I think is one key, obviously I think any quarterback really, but like specifically Justin Herbert just would like how it's been. I mean, last season he was healthy, but then you also look at the weapons, and that's kind of why you can feel like you could say he had a down year, because I mean last season he played all 17 games, but then he had 3,800 pass yards, 23 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions though. So like he's smart with the football. I think simply the fact that you have a better receiving room will do wonders for Justin Herbert's stats going into this season. It'll be interesting to see how the defense plays out. Obviously, you lost Joey Bosa, Christian Fulton, but you also had like rookies step up really nicely, like Junior Colson last season. He was the guy I wanted the Broncos to draft, and we didn't, so I was kind of bumming about that, but he played good last season. And then Cam Hart and Tareeb Steele are still both at the cornerback position. played really well, which is why, the Chargers are so comfortable losing Asante Samuel Jr. during the offseason and losing Christian Fulton.
They were fifth-round picks, mind you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's like because Asante Samuel Jr. he was hurt last season for a decent chunk of the season, and like I think it was Tariq Steele that like apparently he just was playing out of his mind throughout the course of the season, and then Cam Hart started playing really good too, and so it's like you have two rookies who are playing at that starting level, so it's like you feel comfortable losing some of your guys to those bigger contracts. Plus, you bring in Dante Jackson from the Steelers, who I think is a solid veteran presence that, keeps your cornerback room together. Deshaun Hand was a solid pickup, I think. He's a good run-stopping defensive player. You still got Khalil Mack, Bud Dupree is backup. Diane Henley is also a guy, I think I'm really high on. I mean, he's been in the league for a minute now, but 2023 was when he was drafted. But I know, Henley had kind of a breakout season last year, and so a lot to look forward to. It just seeing everybody stay healthy, I guess. That was a big issue with last season, but they lost a lot of guys in free agency, but doesn't seem like it was too negative. It doesn't seem like it affected them too negatively just looking at the roster they have right now, because you lost Bosa, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, DJ Chark technically, Eli Apple technically, Hayden Hurst technically, Marcus May, Asante Samuel, and a whole list of guys, which surprised me considering how good I thought their roster is.
Yeah, well, that's what happens in the salary cap league. One thing that shocked me still is, as much as Justin Herbert is thought about as the elite quarterbacks in the league, he does not have a playoff win still. And in his two opportunities that he did have playoff games in, he blew a 27-0 lead. And then he had 4 interceptions. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being the worst game of his career. And that was shocking to me, considering I still talk about the Raiders game where he converted 3 or 4 fourth downs on the same drive. Mm-hmm. So I know it's in him, but I think a lot of the eyeballs now have been on him. Mm-hmm. And Jim Harbaugh and the GM have done a phenomenal job building up this roster. But they're going to go as far as he goes.
Yeah. But then also, I also think about Lamar Jackson's history in the playoffs. Obviously, as of late, he's been better. But remember his first couple seasons where he struggled to get those wins. I feel like there's a big narrative around Lamar, he's actually not that elite. He can't perform in the playoffs. And I feel one thing is just the fact that the Chargers have struggled to make the playoffs on a yearly basis. If they were making the Chargers if they were making the playoffs every single year, I feel we could have seen at least one playoff win out of the Chargers. But that's kind of been a struggle. Whereas the Ravens, they've been making the playoffs, and so it's been continuous opportunity for Lamar to kind of reprove himself in the playoffs. Obviously, he hasn't made it to the Super Bowl yet, which is kind of the big bummer or whatever. But I think this team that the Chargers got right now, I feel confident that they can at least make the wild card, and there we'll get.
And the tough part is it's a deep AFC team where everybody's just cannibalizing each other.
Yeah. Yeah, he's because I feel if we're seeing a 4,400 pass yards, 28 plus passing touchdown season from Justin Herbert, then it feels they should make the playoffs, especially just with how I feel about their defense. I do like the running backs they have with Omari and Hampton and Najee Harris. It's they should be good.
Keyword should.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Any other thoughts on the Chargers?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay. Nothing for me either. So that wraps it up for the AFC West. That is your division preview. Thank you guys so much for watching. Next week, we'll be covering the NFC South. A lot of fun teams to talk about there. A lot of exciting teams, except the Saints. But regardless of that, this should be a fun discussion. Don't forget to follow us on our Instagram channel at amon.a.mission down below. And our YouTube channel, Amon on Mission, 3 words there. Till then, see you guys later. Corstian closes us out.
Peace out. Woo!